Former IFP leader Mangosuthu Buthelezi kicked off the debate by calling for peace between South Africans and foreigners.
I fear what will happen if we fail to extinguish this fire. There are consequences for our country and for our people in the diaspora. We need to stop this thing in its tracks before serious action is taken against us.
COPE leader Musiwa Lekota suggested South Africa starts tracking immigrants.
Thank you, Deputy. Our government cannot allow for people to come from anywhere and everywhere and come into this country without documentation, without indicating why they are here.
Public Works Minister Patricia de Lille argued the only solution is to create work.
To create an enabling environment for the private sector also to create jobs. And it's only when our people see their opportunities, when our people see that government is enforcing the laws, that we are leveling the playing field.
And Police Minister Bheki Cele commended officers on a job well done.
Up to this point, people who have arrested, there are 639, including yesterday, we arrested 15 in Thokoza that were continuing doing these things.
Monique Mortlock, Parliament.
We understand that a Nigerian citizen who owns a private airline called Air Peace made the offer to the Nigerian government for those who wanted to leave South Africa at the back of these xenophobic attacks that have gripped our country over the last couple of weeks. And they offered 2 flights to into South Africa and taking out about 600 Nigerians who have opted to take up this plan, this free evacuation plan. So it is Air Peace that has offered this, a private airline, but of course it's been facilitated by the Nigerian government and the Nigerian consulate here in South Africa. We do understand that each flight can take up to 300 people. We're not sure exactly if the first flight is full or whether or not a second flight will be coming into South Africa to take those who wish to leave due to the recent xenophobic attacks, and of course many who want to go back home because of the experience they've had recently in South Africa. The sentiment that we've been getting from a number of Nigerians, I tried to speak to a number of mothers who had young children with them. They did not want to speak on camera though, but many of them saying that they just fear for their lives. They came to South Africa for a better opportunity, for a better quality of life after they struggled in their home country, Nigeria. And they're basically saying that things have not been easy here. They've experienced hostility, and they just want peace. And they say they would rather suffer back home than suffer here in South Africa. Let's listen to what Nigerian National had to say to us.
I don't think there's nothing else left for me to stay back here doing. I've got family, they want me alive. I don't want to go home dead. That's the major reason why I'm going home. I might not go home, I might not forfeit all righteousness. I might not be able to come with millions of dollars, millions of rents that my people are expecting from me. But if I'm still alive, I think that money is on my way.
Will you ever come back to South Africa if things settle down?
I'm very sorry to say in the air, I will never.
Many foreign nationals have requested to be taken back to their countries. This after violence targeting them flared up around the country. Centers such as this one in Ekurhuleni have been set up to house all those affected.
We have accommodated the people here from the communities that after the attacks and the lootings that took place last week. So yes, we are basically rendering humanitarian aid to them.
Over 30 foreign nationals have applied to go home in this set-up center alone. Those volunteering say the list is getting longer.
Bonke abaya Malawi, abaya Zimbabwe, abaya kuphi abahlukumezekile abafuna ukuhamba ngizobasiza lana sengiphethe i30 yabo abafuna ukuyolanda izinto zabo ezindlini bakwazi ukubuyela emakhaya.
Even those who were not violently removed from their homes have used this opportunity to try and get back to their countries. They say they are tired of living in fear.
Sengikhathele nelizwe labanye abantu ngoba angitreatwe fail like emphakathini emakliniki epolice station khona sengisho ukureporta icase mangabe ngihlukumezekile ngoba ngakho ngumuntu ongaphandle so ngibona ukuthi kungcono ngiye ekhaya lapho ngizothola khona ama rights njengomunye umuntu lapho engizalelwe khona lapho engigulele khona ngishiye ilizwe labanye abantu.
Uzenini la eSouth Africa?
2014.
The Department of Social Development in Ekurhuleni says arrangements to help those who want to go back home are underway with country representatives. Lindokuhle Xulu, Ekurhuleni.
Shops destroyed and looted. It's resulted in the deaths of 12 people, 2 of them foreign nationals. Over 700 foreign nationals have sought refuge at police stations and community centres, but government insists they are not targets.
We believe that South Africa is not a xenophobic nation. Whoever is found on the wrong side of the law should be dealt with.
The Justice and Security Cluster ministers say they are acting against gender-based violence. Cold cases will be looked into and more female police officers will be trained. Vice-Chancellors will also be asked to reassess campus security. Justice Minister Ronald Lamola has responded to calls to deny bail to those accused of sex crimes.
Obviously, we have to look into what the Constitution says, the due processes, but we are able, the magistrates across the country, are able to look into the conditions and the concerns of communities. It's also the same with regard to the current laws we have with regard to parole.
However, making public the sexual offenders register will need more consideration.
The whole process of the list will have to undergo the routes of Parliament, because the other issues that they also flared up on the initial implementation is the issues of vigilantism. That when you've listed people on the list, what then happens with the public now with the current environment that we have.
He says more sexual offences courts will be reopened. Lindsay Dentlinger, Parliament.
Moody's is pointing to our strong institutions and reasonably good foreign currency reserves as some reasons behind why it has not downgraded us to junk just yet. But what would happen if Moody's does so? Some investors will be compelled to pull out their money from our bonds. The rand could tank, prices could rise, and the cost of borrowing or interest rates could surge with fewer job prospects. Our economy is only expected to grow by just more than 0.5% this year. Too slow to create jobs and boost tax revenue. So we are borrowing more, and that debt to GDP ratio is a concern that could lead to a negative outlook and then a downgrade.
So the cost at which they borrow is going to be very important. And, economists like to compare that interest rate with the pace of the economy. And if actually the pace of the economy is too low, it means government needs to generate primary surplus in order to counteract that sputtering effect. There are no primary surplus, as you know, today in South Africa. The last time there was a primary surplus was in 2008.
Plans to boost the economy are in abundance. Commitment to policy implementation, not so much. But some analysts are upbeat.
Some of them should be reasonably easy, not particularly controversial, etc. So we share the Moody's view that it's still time to be hopeful about some progress in the short term, even if it's just a couple of smaller wins.
Moody's says the biggest cloud of uncertainty remains Eskom's recovery with its 440 billion rand debt and the absence of a plan that is accepted by all stakeholders. But even that won't see a downgrade in November. At most, our outlook will change from stable to negative. So some breathing space for the country as we clutch on to the remaining investment grade status we have as a country from Moody's, but convincing implementable policies need to get off the ground sooner than later. Devin Murugan, Johannesburg.
The high yields of the 90s and early 2000s are a thing of the past now. The JSE's all-share index has been on a steady decline over the last 5 years, and it's not clear when it might rebound. Part of the problem is the low-growth environment. This has seen company earnings drop as more and more people find themselves out of work and consumption spending ticks down. The trade war between two giant world economies has kept investors jittery. But for the lucky few who can put some money aside in a unit trust or exchange-traded fund, where do they find growth that will beat consumer price inflation?
If you're a long-term investor, then you need to put your money in equity. And right now, you have a choice between local equity, offshore equity. As a local Joe Soap investor, you need to have a level of diversification.
South African government bonds still have decent yields at around 8% on average, even though they are volatile. But even with investment guaranteed when a bond matures, analysts say bonds aren't the safe haven they used to be. So is gold the answer?
People who had some exposure to gold shares so far are the ones who've been doing well. Because most companies, whether you look at our banks, you look at our chemical companies, unfortunately they've been doing badly.
Looking offshore could be the option. However, you'll have to try hedge against the volatile rand.
All the big JSE shares have primary listings outside of the JSE, and the inward listings on the JSE are as much affected by the rand as an investment in Apple or Google or Louis Vuitton, any one of the big listed international shares. So I think South African investors have come to terms with the fact that the rand volatility in the stock market is something you just have to live with.
Points to take away are, if you are thinking of investing towards your future, it's important to think long-term. But also see a financial advisor to help you navigate these stormy seas. Dimakatso Leshuru, Johannesburg.
So this house is going to be a house where a young girl can feel, I can feel like a woman. I can learn how to portray myself. She comes here with her dream and we unpack a dream for her.
Oh yeah. What happens when your daughter wears shorts? Too short.
They're not.
Let's go. Let me see.